Hi, welcome to Wednesday Wisdom. My name is Sera Doğramacı and I'm Ice Hockey Australia's goaltending development manager. And today with me, I have the legend that is Damian Holland, who is a goalie coach with the AIHL Melbourne Mustangs. How are you, Damian?
Good, Sarah. How are you? Pleasure to be
Ex-
here.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. So I always start off with why goalie? How did your hockey career start and why did you end up picking goalie?
Oh wow. Well, I'm probably one of the older goalies that you've interviewed, but it could be a long story. So it goes back. So my background, I have Australian parents. So I was born in England. We moved to Canada to Montreal when I was very young, about 3 years old. And if you think, so I'm 51, showing my age. But back when I was growing up, Montreal Canadiens, in a 10-year period, won 5 Stanley Cups. And I was in the middle. I grew up in the middle of all that, and also I think when you land in a new country and you look at what to do during the winter season, there's not a lot to do in Canada, other than your winter sports, hockey, skating, figure skating. So I got into hockey quite young. I was about 4 years old, I think.
Okay.
So really, not far off walking, and they stick skates on your feet,
Yep.
and that was pretty normal in Canada growing up. And to begin with, they put me on defense. I really didn't enjoy it. If you think about what we were doing, we were going to the rink a couple of times a week. You get dressed at home, with your skates on and your skate guards, and you walk across the parking lot. And I think because I wasn't very good at it, I was a little bit of a perfectionist even at a young age.
Okay.
It took a while to catch on. So the parents would always force me, and eventually, I started enjoying it. I was around the whole Montreal Canadiens, phenomenon. And then, I saw a guy called Ken Dryden play, and I know that Maria Mountain mentioned Ken Dryden as an influence as well. And he was phenomenal. And I think I really fell in love with the game. I fell in love with the position, and I put my hand up and I said, "Look, I'd like to try this." And I think at about the tender age of 7 or 8, I started playing in net. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and I started at the bottom, house league, and kind of worked my way up, and worked on my skating, and finally, got to the Adam Double A and the Pee Wee Double A, playing in a city called Verdun, which is a suburb of Montreal. And I was that was became my dream all of a sudden. I found something that I really enjoyed doing, and I knew that even at a tender young age, I wanted to play in the NHL, and that was my dream, and there was nothing that was going to stop me. Um, when I turned 12, life kind of throws you some curveballs, and things change, and due to sort of family reasons, we decided to move back to Australia,
Okay.
and landed in Adelaide.
So
So
was that your first time in Australia then? So if you went England to Canada, then Australia?
yeah, we had a
Okay.
just a brief vacation, once when I was very young. I didn't really remember it, but it was a real culture shock, coming from Canada and then landing in Australia. I had to wear a school uniform, and I didn't know what was going on. And the first thing I said to my mother was, "Where's the rink?" And
Yeah.
back then they had Payneham Ice Rink, which is not there anymore. It was torn
Okay.
down. And anyway, she dragged me along to the rink. We met a few people. I actually was invited to train. There was a couple of guys from Finland that were there, and I thought, okay, well, I'll go out for a few shots. So here I am, a 12-year-old. Um, jump on the ice, and it was I don't know if you know Kari Pinanen and Atte Malste.
Okay.
Basically had just arrived from Finland, from Division One Finland.
Wow.
I was a
Okay.
12-year-old, and I think Atte, who I eventually played on the national team with, has and still has one of the hardest shots that I've ever faced. And he was unloading on me as a 12-year-old. And hey, that was the beginning of my ice hockey career in South Australia. Um, you know, Played for the Falcons, coached by John Bottrell, and surrounded by a hockey community that was just amazing in Adelaide and South Australia. and
Yeah.
really allowed me to kind of develop as a goalie. And I know I want to talk about goalie coaching. I didn't have a goalie coach. I don't think I've ever really
Yeah.
had a goalie coach. So I was self-taught, and you learn quite a few lessons as a result. You learn to become a student of the game, and you figure out what you need to practice, and you just do it yourself. So,
And in doing
you know,
that, you create yourself a whole lot of different opportunities and pathways. So you mentioned that the dream was to become an NHL goalie,
yeah,
but I think you achieved some phenomenal things along the way. So I'm just going to go really briefly through your resume.
yeah, yeah.
Age 13, you played in the Tange tournament. So for those that know, that's, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids.
Yep.
You were 13 playing in Tange. Age 16, selected onto the national senior team. Age 17, got your first debut with the national team, so got ice time. You were on the first ever Australian youth team, so the under 18s national team. Best goalie award at a couple of world championship tournaments, no big deal. And then after all that, first Australian to be awarded a full college scholarship. I think that's pretty amazing. To me, that's like a pioneer of the game and paving the way for future goalies. So, how did you actually make those opportunities happen?
Well, thank you for mentioning all that. Yeah, I'm very proud of what I was able to achieve through my career, and I think it sort of goes back to what I said originally. Like at a very young age, I decided what I wanted to do, and there was nothing that was going to stop me from doing it. So kept training really hard in Adelaide. I used to get favors. I'd be led into the rink, early in the morning, and I'd go probably 3 4 times a week. And that little ice surface that they created next to the main surface, I used to just train by myself skating.
Nice.
So I worked hard at my skills, and then had the opportunity to play in the first three youth teams. So then you get exposure to some better players, and I think through all that, I was also playing against men. So I was playing against older players with harder shots that were highly skilled. So I was actually able to, I guess, lift to their level, and
Mm-hmm.
make sure that I was I guess keeping the momentum going on my training, but also keeping an eye on, I guess, the standard overseas, and making sure that I was, even in Australia, I was trying to keep up with the standard of
See where
a
you need to be.
Canadian
Yeah,
goalie, for instance. Yeah,
absolutely.
and trying to benchmark myself against a Canadian goalie. So yeah, at a very early age, again, I decided to pack my bags and leave home and go back to Canada. So I think I was about 16 years old. I thought, if I'm going to do this, this is the time. You've got to do it when you're young. You can't wait until you're 19, 20 years old, because um, your formative learning years are really in the early teens. And if you haven't got the skills by then, it becomes more difficult
Yeah.
to learn them later on and perfect them. So I bounced around. So I landed in Vancouver, bounced around the BC JHL, as it was back then, which is junior A. And as a 16-year-old, I was packing my bags probably once every few weeks, because I didn't make a team. I got cut, I got traded, whatever. I actually got traded a few times as a 16-year-old. So I went from
Still,
Penticton to
still in the
some.
Vancouver area.
Yeah, it was it
Okay.
was all
Like
across
BC. Yeah.
British Columbia. Yeah.
Okay.
So Penticton to Summerland, then back to Vancouver, and eventually what happened was I landed with a junior A team in Nanaimo, so the Nanaimo Clippers,
Okay.
and played a couple of games, did okay. I was a bit of a curiosity, I think. This young Australian goalie that's come across, and I got traded. So they had two guys coming back. They had to bring the list down. They traded me to a team in Quesnel. And I don't
Okay.
know if you know the geography of British Columbia, but Quesnel is up by Prince George.
Okay.
It's about halfway to Alaska. I thought, that's it. My career is over. This is it. I'm done. But anyway, I gave it a shot, and I went up to Quesnel, and it was a pretty average team. Small town, 10,000 people. again, I was a bit of a curiosity. This Aussie kid coming in. And anyway, we had it was probably one of the best experiences in ice hockey I've ever had through my career, because we started off as, the basement dwellers. We just scraped in. We got fourth place, leading into the playoffs, and then we knocked off the top team, Prince George, and then we knocked off the second top team, Grand Prairie, and we won the championship. And then
Nice.
all of a sudden, I started getting a little bit of press, and we went down to play the Richmond Sockeyes, who were the reigning national Canadian champions, and even got an article in the provincial paper about this young Australian goaltender. So anyway, then what I guess transpired was going from what I thought was the bottom and almost the end. The following season, I was invited to a few camps. New Westminster Bruins. I was thinking about going Western Hockey League and Major Junior. And then I started hearing all these stories about college hockey. And the opportunity to play in the States. You get 4 years, all expenses paid with your education. You come away with a degree, and it was as good, and in some cases better than Western Hockey League. So it was at that level, and I thought, that's something that I want to aspire to. So again, I sat down, and sort of figured out, how I was going to do this, and laid out, sort of a roadmap for myself. And I had to, make sure that I had good grades at school, and it was all, I guess, in this environment where I was living on my own. I was coming back to Australia periodically to sort of check in with the family and my mom, and but for a large part, I was living with billets and just pursuing this dream. Anyway, to make a long story short, finally went back to Nanaimo, and did quite well. And the college scouts started to knock on the door. I had a couple of offers from University of Illinois Chicago, but also Colorado College, and went for what happens is they invite you to come and have a look at the campus for 48 hours. You check it out, and then you go to your next visit, and then you pick what school you want to go to, if you've got that opportunity. So I went to Chicago, fell in love with the place, and said, sign me on the dotted line, and then decided to go the college route, and 4 years Division I NCAA.
Nice.
Full scholarship. It was, probably the best thing I've ever done, and the best decision I made with my hockey career.
So we'll get to the opportunities you had playing college hockey. What did you study?
So I studied business finance.
Okay.
Yep. So
what was the end goal with that? What were you hoping to just have a degree as a backup plan, or?
It was the one thing that I hadn't really thought through. so I think my rationale for picking business was that I was in Chicago. Chicago is a financial town. I wanted to make money. After I finished up the hockey career.
Yeah.
And define and carve out a really good career for myself, because I knew that hockey wasn't going to go on forever, and ultimately you have to make that decision. It's that big decision. It's the fork in the road. Do you keep playing competitive hockey, or do you go to get to
have your plan B? Yeah.
Plan B, which ultimately becomes your plan A.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I went into it not really knowing what I wanted to do, and then from a career perspective, I sort of followed my nose from that point on. But
Nice.
the finance and the business degree actually gave me the grounding to then make decisions about broadly what I wanted to do in life.
Excellent. Okay, so the hockey side of things at college, any highlights or opportunities that were just fantastic, blew you away? Like, and obviously coming from Australia, maybe some opportunities that you had there that we don't necessarily have here.
Well, I think it was an interesting time because I was playing college hockey, and generally it was you had 3 to 4 goalies on the roster. Probably and 3 of them had full scholarships, so it was very competitive.
Okay.
And I played behind a couple of highly drafted goalies. One was a New Jersey sixth rounder. One was the overall number one pick in the supplemental draft, the NHL. So some really good
Nice.
goalies.
Wow.
So fair to say, I think I probably didn't do as well as I was hoping to. And my junior year, which is my third year, I played the most.
Okay.
Probably the biggest highlight was we had a game. So the team that I played for, University of Illinois Chicago, or UIC, they played in the CCHA, which is the Central Collegiate Hockey Association.
Okay.
But we played against Michigan Wolverines, Michigan State Spartans, Ohio State, Miami, Ohio. So at that point, it was considered probably the leading NCAA
Okay.
league or
Hmm.
division in the country. But in my senior year, I got a chance to play against Michigan State in a weekend series, and we had a really big rink in Chicago, and it was the first time that it was pretty much sold out, or pretty close to being sold out. I think we had about 6,500 to 7,000 fans, screaming fans, and we beat Michigan State. And we weren't the greatest college hockey team for that year. But I managed to come away with a win against Michigan State, which were one of the top teams. And that was probably the
Nice.
highlight, a good way to finish off the
Yeah.
NCAA career. And really, I look back fondly on those times. I wish I could have played more as a college goalie, but you know what, I gave it my best shot. And I think, ultimately, probably, if you look at goalies now, and the successful goalies, even back in my time, they were starting to get a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, and maybe I just didn't have the physique for it. But I went pretty far, and I was pretty happy and proud of my achievements.
Well, and that's what it ultimately comes down to. Did you do everything you could have done? And it certainly sounds like you did. So absolutely, you
I
should
was
be proud of that.
Yeah, I was satisfied by the end of my college career that it was time to, move on, hang up the skates. I could have gone to Europe and bounced around Europe in some of the pro leagues there, but I had other aspirations. It was time. It was time to carve out a career.
Which is fair enough. So then, did you come back to Australia then, or did you hang around in North
Uh,
America a bit more?
I hung around for a couple of years. Lived in Miami for about a year and a half, and then decided it was time to come home, and it landed in Brisbane. So I didn't go back to South Australia. I thought my sister was living on the Gold Coast, so I decided to move up to the Gold Coast and enjoy some sunshine. Every young man's dream. It was
Right?
a beautiful place. Um, and moved down to Sydney, and played hockey at sort of the A grade
Okay.
level all the way through. Moved down to Sydney for 6 or 7 years, and then have been down in Melbourne for 12 years or so now.
Really working your way down, right?
Yeah, Tasmania next.
Which is a
I'm coming,
beautiful place,
Tasmania.
and they do have
Yeah,
a rink. So yes, of course you can still play hockey there.
it's a small rink, from what I understand.
It's a little shoebox, but at least they have a surface to
Yeah,
play on. Okay, so when did the transition to coaching happen?
yeah. It's tough to pinpoint, because I've always wanted to share my knowledge. So with
Okay.
even at a young age, if there was a goalie that needed help, I was always prepared to spend time with them. And I really enjoy doing it. But probably in earnest, it happened while I was at college. I was fortunate enough to to be invited to coach at the Montreal Pro Hockey School. So the Montreal Pro Hockey School is where the Montreal Canadiens teach, and it's sort of their hockey school.
Mhm.
So every summer I'd go up to Montreal and spend 6 weeks as a specialist goalie coach and counselor. And I
Okay.
got the opportunity, because it was quite interesting, because I got to know a lot of the Canadians quite well. Matt Schneider, Ben Brunet, and Brule. And we had basically the summer to I had the summer to actually spend playing with them as well. So they invited me out to be to take shots, and they had exhibition sort of practice matches, and I'd be at one end, and Patrick Waugh would be at the other end. And it was such an amazing experience, and it was something that I got out of goalie coaching. That if I hadn't decided that that was a pathway that I wanted to pursue, I never would have had that opportunity to meet
Absolutely.
and play
Yeah.
with some heroes.
Yeah. Well, my
Yeah,
hero for sure. Yeah.
yeah.
That's amazing. So then coaching in Australia. So like right now, help I'm coaching with AIHL.
Yep.
Are there things you've done along the way, or was it not, I guess, so formalized, so structured, or
Yeah, probably not as structured. So I've been with the Mustangs, what now, 4 years. So dual
that's what I've
role.
got written down.
Yeah, I had to think about that. So I think I'm going into my 5th year. But dual role, goalie coach and assistant coach, predominantly goalie coach.
Okay.
That's really what I'm there to do. Um, and that's probably before that it was just ad hoc. I
Yeah.
spent some time with the Melbourne Ice, with their goalies, and really it was just whenever I had the opportunity. I'd run a seminar or run some kind of a coaching clinic if I could, because I enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
And now it's a bit more formalized. I think we've got a really good system with the Mustangs. I think with the three coach structure with Max and Johnny, they focus on their strengths, and I focus on my strength, which is goaltending.
I do like that you are recognized as a goalie coach on the team, that it's a recognized position. It's not rolled in as like a second assistant coach, or some teams might, depending on what the situation is, or here's an equipment manager, but really they're here to be a goalie coach. So I love that it's recognizing you as a goalie coach in your own right, and I would love to see that happen across all the teams and across more and more teams and clubs across Australia, because we're we are
I agree.
worthy.
I agree, 100%. And I mean, you just have to look at the Finnish and the Swedish models, and the success of their goaltenders, and why is that the case? In Finland, every junior team has got a goalie coach,
Yep,
and as a result of that, you look at for a very small country, much smaller than Australia, how many goalies have they got in the NHL? Tuukka Rask, Pekka Rinne, they're all over, and it's because of
absolutely.
the discipline, it's the structure of their goalie coaching. But the bottom line is every team has a goalie coach, and I think we sort of in Australia, I think, fall into more that North American style of coaching, um, and not that European model, which is very much a balanced approach with goaltending as an equal partner. The North American model is, you get out there, you take shots, and if the coach says, don't shoot the puck at their heads, he feels like he's doing his job. But it's not and you and I both know that's not the case. You need structure. You need to have uh, an approach to coaching that involves the goalies, that allows them to warm up and then focus on particular areas that they need to work on, movement, skating, whatever it is. Ingrain that within the practice plan. We try to do that within the Mustangs. I mean, we only really get 2 hours a week. When we're on the ice, we're not on the ice now, obviously, and haven't been on the ice in a long time. But to have either some drills that are goalie focused, or a special time, call it 10 minutes, where you can take some players while they're working on the power play or the penalty kill, and we can just organize some shots, some specific shots that will help the goalies improve.
So touching on that, how much input do you have with the other coaches with the overall practice design, and making sure that when there's drills that are often so player focused, and it's a
Yep.
do this, then take a shot, but it's maybe not specifically where to shoot, or go chase a rebound or something, where the goalie is actively doing something rather than just stop the puck. How
Yeah.
much say do you actually get in the overall practice design, and what the goalie's role is in that?
Oh, look, I think I mean, the good thing about Max and Johnny is we've established a bit of a partnership, and I think they absolutely understand the importance of goaltending, and they respect it, and
Okay.
they and they trust my judgment, and they incorporate suggestions into practice plans and into the overall training strategy. So there's no issue there, and I think that's kind of a sign of a really good coach, that you recognize that it's not just about your scoring ability or your defending ability; it's that balanced approach. So we work together. We make suggestions about drills. I mean, the other thing I should add is that because we don't really have a lot of time in a training,
Mm.
I actually spend quite a bit of time practically standing next to the goalies. If there's a drill, I'll be shouting at them, talking to them. They'll take a shot. We'll have a bit of a chat. What could you have done differently? Yep, that was good. Good movement. So it's constant communication, and that's probably where I add the most value, is
Yeah.
on the spot feedback when it's relevant and it's fresh in their minds.
That's excellent. And I love that there is the level of respect within the three coaches as well. It's excellent to hear. So, and even only 2 hours of ice a week, not right now.
Yeah.
And so there's only a limited amount of time to specifically work on goalie skills, whatever
Yeah.
it may be, if it's specific patterns, skating and whatnot, increased movement. So is there anything that you do with your goalies outside of that formal team environment?
Yeah, there is. So we've established quite a good program at Ice HQ. So Ice HQ is the new player in the ice arena business here in Melbourne. We've been around for a couple of years. So Ice HQ is near my house, so it's actually quite easy to sort of set up a program there without having to travel halfway across the city. And every Saturday, what I do is an hour training, which there's no pucks, So my
So
view
just for
is that
goalies, right? An hour
just for goalies, we take about a quarter of the ice, not even a quarter of the ice. We set up nets. We do a lot of skating, a lot of tee pushes, shuffles, butterflies, and that's probably half the session. So we get, I'm sort of agnostic as to who comes along, but we get the Melbourne Mustang goalies, we get a lot of juniors, we get a couple of Melbourne Ice goalies come along, and all we do is skating and movement. And by the end of it, they're stuffed, which is
But
the
it's
objective.
important. It's the foundation of it.
Absolutely, and it's if you don't have a lot of time on the ice, what you need is repetition. So we get in the nets, we work on RVH, movement into and out of the RVH, VH, and taking that skating and the movement training and making it relevant to a game. Where you're moving around a crease, because it's different. You're not moving in a straight line, or you're not moving in perfect zigzags. You're actually moving according to and trying to read a play. And if it's a 2-on-1, you got to play it differently than a 1-on-1.
Where do you need to be? Yeah, absolutely. And how do you move? Excellent. So then taking it into a game, how much input do you have in terms of the goalie recruitments to the Mustang, the rotations, who starts? I mean, you got a shot in 2017, you filled in and you did somewhat okay. Did you just say, I'm playing today?
Funny you should mention that one. I did play a game as a 48-year-old and got a win. Anthony Kimlin's probably going to kill me one day when he sees me, but he did play a much better game than I did. He had a few more shots. So it's the partnership amongst the coaches. It's the respect of our strengths. So
Nice.
My input into the goaltending situation is a strong voice. Ultimately, it's in Max's hands to make the decision, and I respect that. But usually he does what I say anyway.
Listen to the expert, right?
That's it.
Nice. Okay, so then in terms of recruiting, what are you guys doing anything specific for the junior development for the goalies at the moment? Well, maybe not at the moment in Melbourne, but usually if there was no pandemic and disruptions, how do you guys develop the younger goalies? You've got the Saturday morning sessions, but is there any sort of other formalized structure within the Mustangs in terms of that?
There is. So we have a junior Mustangs program. So we every year we invite a certain number of juniors along, and they're typically 17 years old or younger.
Okay.
And we always have a goalie in that sort of model. You know, think of like Tom Forrest. He's sort of in the junior development program. We do a lot of work together on Saturday mornings, but it's really about, I guess, identifying young talent and then giving them an opportunity to jump into Mustangs trainings periodically.
Nice. Okay.
To face some harder shots, face the experience of AIHL players, and hopefully lift their game. So we bring them in periodically. We do work with them Saturday mornings, for instance, um, but it has to be with a bit of focus. You've got to identify the right individuals, and from what I've seen, we've got in the not not the Mustangs Junior Development Program, but just in the Ice HQ goalie training
Hmm.
cohort, there's about 25 goalies that we're working with.
Nice.
A lot of them are younger, and a lot of them are very young. So you can sort of um, see the development, and you can see who's improving, and then you can earmark, I think, who you want as potential Mustangs goalies for the future, and do some extra work. And what I look for is it's not necessarily physical, although I think more and more, the larger goalies are proving that it does help. It absolutely does
Yes.
help, which is
Yeah.
was never my forte, unfortunately. But we look for athleticism. We look for good health and dedication. But more above anything, it's about that willingness to learn. I
Okay.
think if a young goalie if I speak to a young goalie and they're asking questions, they're a student of the game, they're watching YouTube videos, if I say RVH, they know what I'm talking about. I think, that's the type of individual that I can work with. And, you know, we've been pretty successful in that. And I think we've been able to develop, through the younger ages, some really solid goalies. But, it's a shame that we've got this pause, because I think this year we would have been able to showcase a little bit of that talent.
Yeah, I'm sure it is a shame. So I just want to ask another question with the recruitment. So
Yeah,
obviously looking for people that can stop a puck or keep the puck out of the net.
yeah,
That's obviously important. And then someone, I think what you're touching on is someone that's coachable. So they've got the technical
yeah.
skills, but are they still, willing to tweak some of their performances and their technique? So being
Yeah.
a coachable athlete is obviously important. Is there anything within the personality as well, or any sort of, I guess, mental resilience, anything like that that you look at, like we're talking 25-ish goalies that are around. So is there something that would then set someone apart that you would want to recruit out? Are they a good fit for the team?
Yeah, we're big on cultural fit, and I think
Okay.
I think the individuals need to demonstrate that they can work hard and be team players. And what I love to see with a goalie, above and beyond kind of core talent and a willingness to learn and everything else, is really the ability to put up their hand and say, look. I'm not having, the practice isn't structured in a way that's helping me. Can we do something about it? Someone that's got a strong voice that says, okay, well, um, I'm going to grab some shooters and I'm going to work on something specific, because in many cases when a goalie's on the ice, you know, 49 times out of 50, there's not going to be a goalie coach on the ice. So they've got to figure out what they want to get out of it. So they've
Take the
got to be
initiative and take control. Yeah.
self-sufficient. Yeah, they've got to be able to take control. And if they feel like a training is not going according to plan, that's helping them, put their hand up. You know.
Absolutely. So then at the moment, it's a shame that there is lockdown again for you guys. Are you doing anything with any of the goalies off the ice at the moment?
No, it's a little bit difficult right now, because we're not even allowed out of the house. We've got our masks. We've got hundreds of masks. We're only allowed out for an hour a day, and it's got to be with your family. So it's this level of lockdown is much harsher than the last one. and
Absolutely.
it's very restrictive in terms of anything that we can do. I am keeping in touch with some of the goalies, making
Yeah.
sure that they're keeping fit. And some of them are actually interstate. So we have, for instance, Seb Woodlands is
Mhm.
was going to be playing for us this year. He's back in South Australia. He's working out. He's not on the ice, but at least he's out and about and not stuck inside like we are in Melbourne. So hands are tied at this stage. But I think after 5 weeks, hopefully we can open up. Or at least get close to opening up the rinks and getting
Yeah.
back on.
It'd be
But
good to see. So, any goalies that are in that situation, do you have any tips or advice for them for what they should be doing now to maybe not so much stay on top of their game, but do something so when they are back on the ice, they're not taking huge steps back?
yeah, obviously fitness and goalie specific fitness. So everything that Maria Mountain advises. So she's got some great videos on YouTube, and you can subscribe to her training programs.
Goalie
They're
Training Pro, yep.
yeah, and they're unbelievable, and it's things. It's not just fitness. It's stretching. Stretching is so important for goalies. I'd love
Mobility, yeah.
goalies. Yeah, if there's a Melbourne goalie that can come out of this pandemic more flexible than when they went in, I mean that's the outcome that I would love to see. And
But at least
it's
they've done something to, yeah. Yeah.
exactly. So I'll be looking for it to see if they've improved. But yeah, I think it's really just keeping their minds focused on goaltending, making sure that they are training. They can do all sorts of stuff. At the end of the day, and I think because I've been watching your videos, which have all been fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
I mean, Perry talks about tracking. And there's a lot of ways that you can practice. Tracking a ball, tracking anything, and it's so important for goaltenders because ultimately a save starts with your eyes, and your eyes move your head moves your body, and that's how it should be. And too often I guess we get into the bad habits of moving body first and then head follows, and you're out of position, you're not square, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I know. I like that you mentioned that because visual skills is absolutely something that everyone can work on at home. So
I agree.
that's kind of a no excuse one right now.
That's
Everyone's
it.
working
That's
on
it.
it. And hopefully the habits that they form at home once you are back on the ice, that some of these habits stick and they keep working on these skills away
Yeah.
from that team environment would be great.
Yeah,
Damien, it has been a pleasure chatting with you today. It
it's
really
been
has been
great.
fantastic. I've enjoyed it. There's so many takeaways from this, and yeah, I hope that once this is all over, you guys can get back on the ice, have some normality, and let's see what's going to happen. I know there's no games for you this season. There's no league, but hopefully we'll see how things go next year, and we'll get some normality back.
Thank you, Sarah, and I appreciate the time. I've really enjoyed the chat.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All right, see ya.